Every pound of tax that's not delivered to the Chancellor and to the Exchequer means that it damages our public services.
Angela Rayner, before the general election, slapping down a Tory minister for unpaid tax. Today, the Housing Secretary acknowledged that she had failed to pay the right stamp duty applicable for buying a home.
As soon as I knew that that was the case, I have alerted and referred myself to the independent advisor on the ministerial code to ensure that they can look transparently at what's happened, and also contacted HMRC to say that there is additional tax owing on this and that I'm prepared to pay that.
Angela Rayner says misleading legal advice was to blame for the mistake, all due to the special circumstances of a trust set up to look after her disabled son. Angela Rayner describes the Ashton-under-Lyne constituency home two of her children live in as her family home, where she and her divorced husband take it in turns to stay. 2 years ago, it was transferred to a trust to look after her disabled son. At the beginning of this year, Angela Rayner sold her stake in that house to the trust. That freed up money to help buy a flat in Hove for £800,000, on which she paid the stamp duty for a designated main home. Today she admitted she should have paid the £70,000 higher rate of stamp duty for second homes.
The complex area of the trust, which the advice that I relied upon didn't pick that up, the leading tax counsel, who has subsequently looked at it, has gone into that and has said that actually because of that, it did remain my sole property. And the trust wasn't set up, as accusations have been made, for me to try and flip or dodge tax or anything of that nature.
Dodge tax?
No, the trust was set up by a court to provide for my son after an injury.
Keir Starmer must now wait for the independent advisor on ministers' interests, Sir Laurie Magnus, to give his verdict on the deputy leader of the party. One tax expert said that judgment could hinge on who Angela Rayner consulted and what she shared with them.
Well, everyone always blames the lawyers, don't they? Question is, what did she do? Did she go to the same specialist who advised her on the trust and they got it wrong? Because if that's what happened, it's not her fault. Did she just ask the conveyancing solicitor who did her Hove purchase what the stamp was without mentioning the trust? Then it's her fault. We don't know.
Keir Starmer's told allies he's grown fond of a deputy whose style contrasts with his own stiffness and reserve. In the Commons question by Kemi Badenoch, the Prime Minister gave every sign of wanting to keep Angela Rayner by his side.
She has admitted she underpaid tax. So why is she still in office?
I am very proud to sit alongside a Deputy Prime Minister who is building 1.5 million homes, who is bringing the biggest upgrade to workers' rights in a generation, and who's come from a working-class background to be Deputy Prime Minister of this country.
Behind Keir Starmer, supportive words from the Chancellor. Only 3 question times ago, it was Rachel Reeves who was distraught.
I've been in shock, really.
Angela Rayner said she had contemplated resigning.
I spoke to my family about it. I spoke to my ex-husband, who has been an incredibly supportive person, because he knows that all I've done is try and support my family.
A dream seaside home has spawned a nightmare for Angela Rayner. The current investigator has a record of fast work, and Keir Starmer could have his report within days.
Well, earlier I spoke to the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, and I asked him if bad advice is a good enough excuse for a Deputy Prime Minister.
It is the honest position, and it's a position lots of people have found themselves in over the years when it comes to managing their tax. I think throughout this whole thing, Angela Rayner has been very transparent, very honest, very straightforward. She's answered all the questions that have been put to her about her living arrangements, about her tax arrangements. She answered all of those questions honestly and in good faith. She set out all of the facts to such an extent that people were then able to scrutinise those facts, challenge whether she had paid enough tax, and having seen that, she went on her own judgment and got independent expert tax advice, realised she made a mistake, and again she has been completely honest and upfront, admitted she's made a mistake, and she's referred herself to the Prime Minister's independent ethics advisor so that he can judge all of the facts and all of the process in all of this. So she's made a mistake, sure, but she's made an honest mistake.
Right. So if it's an honest mistake and there's no question of dishonesty or no integrity around this when Laurie Magnus reports, you think that's fine? You know, because she's admitted that she considered resignation. You know, if she'd asked your advice, what would you have said?
I would absolutely have told her not to resign. I think it would have been a travesty, frankly.
Despite the impact on politics, because you know there will be some people who are sympathetic and there'll be lots of people who aren't. And, you know, all the opposition are saying she's a hypocrite. She called for Nadeem Zahawi to go under very similar circumstances, where he said he'd had bad advice and then corrected it. And this is going to be a political nightmare for you.
Her motivation at the heart of all of this was making sure that later in life, when she's moved on, when she's passed on, that her children, particularly her son, who's got special educational needs and disabilities, has a sort of security in life that she could only dream of growing up. That was her motivation.
Well, that was the motive for the trust.
Yeah.
It's not the motive for deciding how much tax stamp duty you pay on a new flat.
But the point I make here, Christian, is that Angela's motivation has been about providing for her kids. Angela's approach has been to seek advice, which is the right thing to do. Yeah. It turns out she was badly advised, but understandably she's followed the advice in good faith.
You can see the political damage, can't you? You were supposed to be the government beyond reproach, and you no longer are.
Of course, our political opponents will be gunning for Angela Rayner. I think back to so many of the achievements in our first year as a Labour government, and some of our best achievements, the ones that have got Angela's fingerprints on.
But she's the housing minister, and this is a scandal over housing tax.
And she's the
How does she have any authority to talk about tax with other people now?
She's the housing minister that grew up in a council flat and is now building council homes so that other kids have the same security that Ange and I had growing up. I mean, Prime Minister's independent advisor.
The journalists have done a public service, is the truth, isn't it? Because as she herself said, you know, every pound of tax that isn't paid is depriving public services. This is tens of thousands of pounds of tax that she hadn't paid.
Well, journalists do a public service, and you do hold us to account. What Angela has done at every stage in recent days and weeks, which is answer the questions, look back on the facts of her house purchase and the tax she paid, look back at the original advice she got. The facts were then out there.
The advice. The advice will be written.
Well, one of the reasons Angela has referred herself to the independent ethics advisor can look at her handling of this from start to finish and reach an independent judgment that people can have confidence in.
The trouble is, you know, we were supposed to be doing an interview now about caffeinated drinks and stopping children getting them in phase 2 of this government as you try and relaunch. And here you are, sort of mired in a scandal.
We are all human beings. Yeah. We all make mistakes.
Just the last thing on this is, you know, there is the charge of hypocrisy. She called on Nadeem Zahawi to resign. She said his story didn't add up. Why is she any different?
She's not the sort of person who thinks, how can I pay as little tax as possible? She is the sort of person who thinks, how can I make sure my kids have the security in life that I didn't have growing up?
And let's end on caffeinated drinks, which is what we were supposed to be talking about, and stopping children getting their hands on them. To be honest, 3 days into this government's relaunch, you probably feel like you could do with a Red Bull.
It's not right that young people are suffering in their health and in their education because of a can of drink that contains the equivalent of 4 cans of Coke in terms of caffeine, with all of the consequences that we know, as well as the amount of sugar in and the impact on youth obesity as well. It's just one example of the change that this Labour government is delivering thanks to the change that people voted for at the last election.
Wes Streeting, thank you very much.
Thank you.